Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Rise. My name is Ryan Sullivan, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host and this week's guest, Mr.
Double trouble.
Jay DeMerit. We're going to put the name key up twice, because it's dual roles now. Yeah.
And guest.
Yeah, exactly. Nicely done. Right. So stoked to tell this story. Similar to Green Men or Georgia in last week's episode, Brent Hayes, they've told these stories before because they're used as inspirational pieces. But we're going to dig deeper. We are going to go as deep as we can, anyhow, to get those behind-the-scenes stories of the incredible rise and shine of one Mr. Jay DeMerit. So, why don't we just start things out nice and early. You're a Green Bay kid, born in Wisconsin, and obviously, as you've heard on this show in the week ahead, you do have somewhat of an affinity for the Packers. One might say you're a fan, but growing up, you've got that kind of sports atmosphere going on, but it all comes down to the support system as well. The family, the coaches on the way up.
Yeah, I think I was just like any other kid from Wisconsin. We were a multi-sport athlete community. I was playing soccer, basketball, track, wrestling, swimming, you name it. I was one of the fortunate kids who had I had both my parents as gym teachers. So I spent a lot of time in gyms. My grandmas and grandpas were coaches in football and track and all these other things. So, I grew up in a sport educators community, basically. Yeah. And so I was in gyms and playing everything and had support on many different levels on a sporting level. And really, but if you're an educator and you get the true values out of sport. And, I grew up in that environment with parents that helped me do that, helped me, develop as an athlete, but also as a person. From there, it was just kind of just like any other kid. You do what you're good at, and that kind of filters itself out over the time. And basketball, soccer, and track were my three that I ended up playing through high school. I ended up getting a small scholarship to a Division III school to play basketball. But then I had this Division I scholarship on the plate for me to go play soccer in Chicago, and because of that and the design degree that I wanted to go for, because the University of Illinois Chicago had a design curriculum that I wanted to try as a student. That kind of combination, even though again it was a very small scholarship, so we still had to pay out of tuition and all this other kind of stuff. But for me, that combination kind of made my choice as to why I wanted to go from a small town Green Bay kid to go and test myself against the best players, collegiate players, and that's in a city like Chicago.
Yeah, and now we're going to get to the soccer side of things and how things progressed at the university level, but. What was the position in basketball? I didn't know that there was a Div 3 baller sitting next to me here.
Oh, yeah. Well, not to mention, there was a couple other guys on our soccer team that played high school basketball. So we played intramural basketball in the winters. That was our fitness and stuff. And we won. And again, this is Chicago. Chicago, one of the great basketball towns on the planet.
Absolutely.
And we would win our soccer team would win the intramural league at our university.
Nice.
And yeah, we were running and gunning and fitness guys and. Yes, so basketball, again, and this is actually what will lead to my story too, that basketball really taught me a lot about character and certainly competition.
Yeah. Did you catch some Bulls games while you were there?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I got to see MJ play in person a good couple times.
Get out of here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's sick.
True story.
I got to watch him torch the Grizzlies on TV a number of times out here. But yeah, so why don't we talk about, you're at the university now. You get out there and you initially were a forward your entire life.
Yeah, so I was the goal scorer, just like anyone that you gets a scholarship, it's the goal scorer or whatever, and especially from a place where I was from. So, I came in as a freshman, as a forward, and my first preseason tournament, it was Jacksonville, Florida, and we had an injury and a red card to a defender in the first two games, and they were out of defenders, and my coach asked me, he's like, hey, he just knew I was an athlete, he knew I wasn't very good at soccer yet, and basically, he just said, "Did you ever play defense before?" And I said, "No, but on the basketball court, that was my job." So I was like a defensive specialist. I would take the shooting guard and mark him and chase him around and compete with him and do all that, kind of be the annoying guy, right? And shut down their big score. So I just thought, I have that built into me. I might as well try it on a soccer field, and thankfully we did the same type of defensive system. So we had marking back, so that means your right back and your left back on the back of a defensive line on a soccer field. Instead of staying in your position, you just follow the forward around. So it was very similar to the basketball court anyway. It was just a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And yeah, within 3 games, I knew that for 18 years I'd been playing out of position, and Jay DeMerit, the defender, was born, and that truly was, my gift to the soccer field was going out there and competing, and I didn't learn that until I was 18 years old.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty incredible. I don't know. I played forward in hockey all my life, and then I went back to defense the last few years, and I love it too because you can actually control the play. You kind of have that ability back there.
Yeah, when you also have a forward's mind in a defensive position, so it can help you. It can help you mark forwards better because you know their movements better because you used to do those movements.
Yeah,
if you know what I mean, or you can see their tendencies to take a touch or whatever because we were that guy. So you can kind of mirror things a little bit easier because you've been there before, and I think that really helped that transition as well.
I know it's like the absolute worst analogy, but I don't know if you've noticed throughout the first number of episodes of the show, we have Olympians on, we have amazing stories, we have a Premier League soccer player here, and I love relating my beer league sports experience in some way.
Hey, there's one puck. There's one puck out there.
That's what I'm saying.
Not too different. Yeah.
Okay, so now you're at the university, and before we kind of progress, while we're on the topic, you found it very important to not only be just an athlete, but a student athlete. I mean, you have that side of it as well. I mean, something that's also your degree is something that's come in handy now. I mean, since you've retired from the game as well. Kind of talk about your thoughts on just kind of the impact that education can have for student athletes.
Yeah, and I think people would, again, not only in choosing your school, make sure that academic side of life is there for you, something you're interested in when you're looking for schools to choose. But then once you're there, it's amazing how much you can learn. And for me, I was a design student. I went to, school for product design or industrial design, as it's also stated. So we develop anything from products to toys to cars to chairs to any product you see on the market is all developed by a product designer. And there's a amazing amount of creative thinking that goes along with it. The process of evolution of there's no such thing as one right way. It's all this evolutionary. But that starts with a mindset, and that's this design mindset. There's been books written about it now, just about the design mindset, about that kind of thinking was built into my education. And then you're painting and sculpturing and doing color theory and art history and all these other amazing things that you learn in the curriculum side of things, and you're using your hands and all this kind of stuff. And for me, that was a huge part of my own character development. And the design mindset, when I eventually landed on English soil to go and take on that problem, how the hell am I going to make it as a professional soccer player in the biggest soccer jungle on the planet? That took creativity.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and we'll circle back to that as we progress the story, and we'll talk about what you're up to these days as well. But now you're in the university, and it comes time to make a decision. What's next for you? So you've gone through. I mean, you've done some amazing stuff. And you could talk about the different accolades that you had throughout the years playing there. But you're faced with a decision. What's next?
Yeah, and you get to the end of your college soccer career. I was honorable mention All-American, which puts me, top 50 to 100 players in Division I soccer. Whispers of drafts and guys that I got to play against in NCAA tournaments and stuff because we had a pretty good team through a couple of those seasons, and I got to test myself against guys that were currently playing in the MLS. So I knew I could make it to that level. But again, there's only so many draft picks. There wasn't as many teams as there are now, or as many draft picks. And I got passed up. I didn't get drafted by any MLS clubs to give me a shot at making it pro. So again, now it's decision time. I had a semester left, so 4.5 years to finish my degree. I had 6 months left, so I was like, well, what do I want to do? And then at the time, I played with a kid that was from England in Chicago. I was finishing up my education, but playing for a PDL team, which is much like the TSS Rovers here. It's a semi-pro soccer league, right. Where guys that are trying to transition from college soccer to the pros gives them a new platform to play. And it's called the PDL, and I was playing in the PDL and doing pretty well. And again, I had some walk-on stuff. Hey, do you want to come and try out? But I knew that, from contractually, at that time, if you were a walk-on to a professional soccer team, you're making $18,000 a year. Right. There I am, doing 4.5 years of a university curriculum, trying to make 40 out of college. It's normally what you make if you have a college degree. And so I was thinking, well, financially, this is a decision I need to really think about. And and then the second half of that is opportunity. And it just so happened when I was playing on that PDL team, I played with a kid named Kieran Keane, who was moving back to live with his mom in London. And he said, I think your game suits the English style. I think, you have the skill set to potentially make it there. Why don't we go over there and you can live at our place? And, we lived in an attic. We rolled up mattresses, put them through the hole, and had one shared dresser, and lived on the floor and on a mattress. And that's where I started, because I just I weighed up all these things, and again, it was like, do I want to go where the light at the tunnel is so much greater if I actually can kick a few doors in and make it, or do I want to kick a few doors in where I live and I'm comfortable, and if I make it, great. If not, I'll be a designer. And I was like, well, anyone that knows me knows that I'll choose adventure over anything. And that's what I thought. I was like, well, I'll just go to Europe. We had this plan for the first 2 months. We backpacked around Europe and biked to training grounds and asked people for tryouts from professional teams. And that for me was just part of the journey. And I knew that I would, wherever I was going to start, it would be on the last rung of the ladder. So I might as well do it in a place where, like England, the biggest soccer jungle in the world, but still a place of vast opportunity if you could have a roof over your head. And that's the way I thought about it.
Yeah, no, fair enough, man. So, you land over there and you work your way up to Amsterdam. And you've got a piece of paper in hand. I'm gonna let you kind of jump in there with that. But yeah, a pretty amazing start to the journey.
Yeah, well then again the adventure side of life. If you're in Europe for the first time, go travel. And again, we wanted to make sure that our journey was still part of trying to make it as a soccer player. So that's what we did, and we had it mapped out. We started in Amsterdam, then went to Belgium, then went to Germany, then went to France, and spent at least probably a month or two traveling around and knocking on doors and getting rejected and all that other fun stuff that comes with trying to make it. And but again, culture and learning. We stayed with some friends in Germany that I had from people that I knew in Wisconsin, and it's just part of this kind of 23-year-old growth phase where you want to put yourself in a situation you've never been in before, and that for me was a huge priority of why I wanted to go to Europe. And learn about myself, learn about other places, and if you can piggyback soccer with that, which is what we did, that made the most sense, and that's what we did. None of it made it. I think we got some free tickets to some games, a couple like little training things, but nothing concrete. And then we were out of money, and we're like, shit, we got to go back to England and start working. So we did. We took some jobs painting and decorating and painting houses and ripping steaming wallpaper off people's homes and stuff. And and then started making some cash doing that while still playing Saturdays for my 12th division team, making $60 a game. Sundays in the pub league, which wasn't paid, but was just another game. And then all week, Kieran and I would hit the AstroTurf and train and run and get fit and be ready.
Nice, man. Okay, now speaking of making some cash, we'll hit the sponsors here, and we decided we're gonna divvy them up a little bit.
Yeah.
The last few shows, while I've really enjoyed it, we say like, hey, here's our guest. Now let me tell you about these sponsors, and we go on for like 3 or 4 minutes
of so, chatting away about.
Yeah,
we always have to thank our sponsors because they make the show happen. But
of course, while we love them,
our listeners want to get out of the gates and start hearing some stuff.
This is what I'm saying, man. So we're going to start things out with our friends at Botanica, the new Perfect Protein Elevated Anti-Inflammatory by Botanica. It's an organic plant protein blend with inflammatory superfoods, including turmeric and ginger, plus 20 grams. It's hard to say sometimes. 20 grams, not bad, of fermented plant protein packed with natural vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, healthy fats, and fiber. Love that fiber. Turmeric helps reduce reduce inflammation, which is key for sports recovery. And if you've checked out the podcast, you well know at the front of that ad in there, I had a concussion a few years back, and the anti-inflammatory stuff, you pack it in as much as you can, and it helps quite a bit. And actually, I've tested the product out. It's not bad. It's fantastic. It's a good drink. So check them out. That again, Botanica. And speaking of which, we'll talk about some injuries with your story coming up very shortly as well, because there's not quite the Rolodex of Georgia Simmerling, but but there's a few in there that are pretty key. Also got to mention the folks at the Burrard Hotel and this. Even two guys in green spandex sometimes need to break away from regular life.
And the Burrard has everything we need.
Space for hanging out,
bikes for exploring,
sweet rooms for getting ready for the game,
and an amazing downtown location.
So book your Burrard breakaway now and we'll see you at the game. A stay at the Burrard makes heading to the game that much better. Their inner courtyard has table tennis, a fire pit. They got bikes to roam the town, and they're just footsteps away from Rogers Arena and BC Place. Book at theburrard.com. Use promo code GREENMEN. It'll get you 15% off your next booking and stay. And, of course, we got to thank the folks at Red Truck Beer. I was trying to think of like a segue. You mentioned you were going through like Germany and Belgium. Like, there's got to be some good beers through there. But
Sure, they
the
have
fine
some nice
folks,
IPAs, amber ales.
they got them, man.
Oh, of course
You
they
know, the fine folks at Red Truck, we appreciate all the support. They do some fine stuff, keeping the show less parched. So, why don't we dive right back in? So right now,
Okay, where are we?
You're painting houses.
Yep,
You're
in
steaming,
England.
You're steaming wallpaper.
Making $60, so it's 40 pounds is what I'd get in an envelope after the games.
Yeah.
There'd be 12 people there. And by the way, I started as the sub, so first I had to get off the subs bench
Right.
and then play. And then, so, again, like I never walked into that situation. And I think this is also a part of people understanding what it takes on a journey is, you can't just, I knew I wasn't going to land on English shores and walk up to Chelsea's training ground and be like, hey, I'm this American dude from London, from Chicago, can you give me a trial? Like, that's not how that works over there. Like I was 10,000th in line,
Yeah.
literally 10,000th in line of someone that was ready to give me a contract. And I knew that. So first I needed to play, then I needed to start, then I needed to contribute, and then I needed to actually be in a conversation until I can even start to think about getting a trial at a professional club.
Yeah.
So, I came in with that kind of built-in humility of like, okay, I need to do the shit part here.
Yeah.
And work hard and be humble and ask right questions and, don't be an obnoxious 23-year-old college kid from Chicago.
Which is not easy.
Exactly.
Because being obnoxious is like packed in. It's built
and
into
Red
a
Cups have
23-year-old.
been huge friends of mine for the 4 years previously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But again, you got to learn how to fit into places, and I think you fit into places by shutting up when you walk in the door and listen and observe and do the right things, ask the right questions, be confident but humble, and don't act like you know everything. And that for me, because I didn't know what was going on. But I knew I had an opportunity, and that's kind of how it all started. And then, things start to snowball a little bit. I'm starting to get a reputation of a guy in this league that shouldn't be there, and then you start to get trials. And I got a couple third division trials. We spent our gas money to go out for the week to go out to this place called Oxford, which is like 2 hours south of, or I don't know where, it's 2 hours outside of London. Drove all the way out there. Me and Karen both got 80. We both came on in the 87th minute.
Oh, yeah.
So we
Definitely make an impact in the 87th.
Yeah, I think I pushed the lineup once.
Yeah.
Maybe saw the ball in front of me from my midfielder, and that's it. And they're like, okay, well, thanks guys for coming out. But again, like life will tell you that's a failure. But in a way, like I just looked at it as like, well, that's just a shitty situation. Like at least I'm here. At least I got invited. So that means I'm on the right track. And that's kind of where my mindset always took. Like there's so many ways that you could look at a failure as a failure. Like, oh, I got my trial. Oh, I didn't make it. Oh, I better go home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's certainly a mindset that is normal. But, for me, I never looked at it that. I was like, oh, I just went from the 12th division to the 3rd division.
Yeah.
Whether I made that 3rd division team or not, somebody thinks I might be able to. So that's a positive in my direction.
Totally.
So keep going, and that's what happened. I just, kept going and kept doing these things. Finally, at the end of that season, new preseason next year, my 12th division team coach goes to a 9th division team, and he says, we got a preseason friendly this preseason against a 2nd division team called Watford. You should come. You can play against them. So I'm like, okay, great. What an opportunity. So then, we got fit in the preseason, and I played against Watford. And again, they put out their first team. They had just signed somebody from the year before, and that kid, again, this is 9th division to 2nd division, so that's a pretty big jump. And that kid ended up scoring 15 goals for them, and as a gift to say thank you, they were like, we're coming to your house. Your home little stadium, and we're going to play a friendly, so you can get a bunch of gate money and help raise money for your club.
Nice. Okay.
So that's the reason why Watford came to town to play against my team.
Yeah.
And then again, I played against them and played well. And after the game, that Watford was in a situation where financially they couldn't really afford anybody, so you can't go buy players. They had to go find them. And I just happened to be that player. And they're like, well, we take him on trial. Then my 9th division coach was fighting for me, saying, yeah, he deserves this, and he's been here for a while, trying to slum it out down here, but he deserves a shot. And all those forces have to meet.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and anyone in kind of these crazy journeys will have to understand that those things do happen. But you know, you got to put yourself in the arena, you got to put yourself in the mindset, and then you got to put yourself in the opportunities. And a lot of times that those things can match up, and that's what happened for me. And I got to try out, and I was playing with the reserves. Reserves are, you know, young pros, second stringers, guys that, you know, they kind of play in their own league in the English soccer setup, and then there's the first team. So these are guys that play every week, bench players. You know, there's 25 guys on each side.
Yep.
I was training with the reserves for the first week and a half. They called me into the office. Coach goes, "Hey Jay, I heard you've been doing well with the reserves. Why don't you come to the stadium tomorrow night? We got our last big preseason friendly against a Spanish team called Real Zaragoza. So they're like top Spanish team." And he's like, "We'll try to get you involved." So I'm thinking, okay, maybe I'll get a 5 minutes or something at the end, or maybe I'll get to sit on the bench. And took my wind-up camera, and literally I walked in, and he put me in the starting lineup with 10 other guys I'd never even trained with, you know, let alone played with, in front of 25,000 people, which the stadium was full, against a team that's top in Spain. You know, and all of a sudden that's my
that's insanity. Yeah,
that's the upstart, right? And then you're like, whoa. So I have my freak out, oh shit moment, and in a way, I you know, again, we talk about moments, and that was a huge moment for me. Sitting in the toilet stall, having a minor freak out.
You know what? You kind of segued it right there. That's exactly where I was going to go with my next question. You know, we like to uncover a lot of behind-the-scenes stories here, and you know, this story, the rise and shine. I mean, you've told elements of it before, but I'm going to ask you a question you might not got before. I did stand-up comedy once, and I looked out. There was like 40 people sitting there, and I was freaking out. And I mean, I got to tell you, it's the best diet I've ever been on. I went straight to the can. You're going out to play in front of what, 30, 40,000?
Yeah. 25 is their stadium.
25,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Still pretty big step from like, you know, Div 9 and running around Amsterdam. It's a pretty big step up there. What was the pregame ritual, if you will? How many times did you head to the can?
Well, thankfully, nothing ever came out, but my mind was shitting itself. That's for sure. So we talk about having conversations with ourselves, and that was the most important conversation I ever had with myself. And you know, I was thrust in a situation where I knew this was the reason. You know, you're sleeping on floors. You're spending a year plus of your time, you know, playing in front of 12 people and a dog. You know, like trying to run in the rain and tell people you're good enough, and you know, take all the hits along the way. And you know, but then all of a sudden you're like, I'm not ready for this. Like, what you know, like, how do you even tell me? Like, you know, there's so many ways that you can go back at the source and blame it. Yeah, you know what I mean. And I just and that was my initial reaction. He can't do this to me. Like, I'm not ready for this. I'm not even sure. I don't even know what's going on out there. You know, you didn't even tell me I'm going to start. Like, at least maybe tell me before I go in the stadium or something, or call me that morning, or you know, say I might try to get you on the field. So then at least I'll come in like with a mindset I'm going to be on the field. But I just thought I'd be on the bench or something. But then again, you know, then I sat down and I take a breath, and then you go, this is precisely what you've been waiting for a year and a half. This is precisely why. This is the opportunity. Now, you are prepared. This is the reason you get out of bed every morning to run in the rain. This is the reason you go to AstroTurf parks for 5 nights a week to try to get games. And this is why you play in the 9th division and the 12th division and go to trials all around the country to get this opportunity. So, you know, don't mess it up now. And that's kind of where my mind shifted. And it was like this, you know, and this continued for the rest of my life. And this, I call it the tunnel mentality. Like, when you're standing in the tunnel, there's so many things that will tell you that you're going to mess up, or what happens if this happens, or if I make a mistake, or if that guy that's really famous scores on me, or whatever. And there's all these people watching on TV and in the stands, and so many ways to psych yourself out. But I always kind of tried to shift that, and that was, instead of recognizing that these are a million ways you can fail, like, you're in an opportunity to succeed in a place that you've never been able to succeed before. So concentrate on how you're going to do that. And that's what I did. And I played 90 minutes, and coach called me in his office and said, you know, what'd you think? And I said, I think you're an asshole. But then he offered me a 1-year contract, and that was the start of it. Amazing, man. Absolutely amazing. Okay, so rather than touching on different progression points, let's touch on some moments here. Now that you're in the show, you know, not to say that, you know, the Div 9 or Div 12 at the park and what was not the show. That's definitely not the show. Yeah, but let me tell you, that's not the show. You've taken a huge step forward. You're playing in front of Elton John now. Was this pre-Elton, or was this? No, I mean, Elton's been around since he was this big. So
Yeah,
he's
okay.
he's around. He comes once or twice a year, and that's a whole other story for another version of this podcast. The first time I met Elton, but
Oh yeah.
yeah. I mean, I was in my underwear, and he had a Super Bowl ring. So that's it's a pretty cool story.
Fair enough. So we could take a break from now to Elton John's story, but I want to come back to that Elton John. But first, before we do, while we're talking about Elton John, let's leverage his stardom so we can talk about some sponsors.
Sure.
First off, Berard Physio, and I mean, perhaps a nice segue for what's to come, too, because we're getting to those injuries. You want to keep that body healthy. Everybody does. The skilled caring therapists at Berard Physio are here to help. They'll carefully assess and prescribe exercise. They also have leading-edge equipment like laser, shockwave, anti-gravity treadmill, and real-time ultrasound. With over 150 years of combined experience, you know you're in the right hands with Berard Physio Therapy, and we want to thank the fine folks at Berard Roofing and Drainage as well. And now this.
Drip, drip, drip. Ladies, you don't have to sleep with that drip tonight. You know, that annoying drip in your home you just haven't gotten around to getting rid of? Berard Roofing and Drainage can fix that annoying drip. For 40 years, Berard Roofing and Drainage has been fixing roof leaks right down to the cause, guaranteed. Call Berard Roofing and Drainage. Call 604-986-1812. Berard Roofing and Drainage. We've got you covered.
Proudly serving Metro Vancouver for nearly 40 years, the most trusted name in roofing, rated A++ by the Better Business Bureau. Check them out at BerardRoofing.com, 604-986-1812. And, of course, thank the folks at Astra Athletica as well. You got the pants yet?
Not yet.
Oh, buddy. Okay, we're working on
New West.
The Victor joggers. I know.
I got to get out there. When am I going to do that?
It's right across the street from Pemberton.
Yeah.
It's right there. Go on now.
By helicopter.
Yeah. We'll make sure it
An hour
works.
trip by helicopter.
I'm telling you, man, those Victor jogger pants are unbelievable. I think I wore them for 9 days straight. So they're pretty good. So let's get right back to it. You meet Elton John in your underwear, and he has a Super Bowl ring. Go.
Well, yeah, it was my first season, and Elton comes in because Elton, for those that don't know, Elton is considered the life president of Watford Football Club. It's his boyhood club. He was there going when his dad was this big. He saved the club from bankruptcy twice. He's the club's hero. And yeah, so he's considered the life president. He doesn't have to do the running of the club, but he's just that lore of a legend. And they've recently just named a new stand at the stadium after him. And so yeah, he comes into the locker room, and it's my first season. I'm sitting there, game's over. I'm sitting there in my underwear, and he all of a sudden I hear him, in his very, recognizable voice. It's like, "Where's the American?" And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I think that's me. I'm looking around like, yeah, there's no other Americans on this team. Yeah, it's me. And he's like, yeah, come over. He comes over, sits right next to me. And I'm like, and he starts, again, this is what was impressive about him is that he knew about me. He knew that I was from Green Bay, Wisconsin. And at this time, Brett Favre was retiring for the first time. And he's like, well, I know you're a big, I know you're a big Packers fan. What do you think about Brett Favre retiring? So I start talking about Brett Favre. Again, I'm talking about Brett Favre in my underwear next to Elton John, and I'm in the locker room in England. You know what I mean? Like, think about that for a second. And then he goes, actually, have you ever seen one of these? And he takes this ring off and he throws it in my hand, and I catch it, and it's the New England Patriots Super Bowl ring. And he's like, oh, well, I'm friends with the Crafts. So they presented with me whatever Super Bowl it was. And he's like, everything. I'm like trying it on. Just like, what is going on? And we just had a great conversation, and that was that. And then, he stayed. I've stayed in touch with him, and he comes to used to come to the stadium all the time. And then later in my career in Watford, when I became captain of the club, I'd have lunch with him, and he'd come in, and I'd introduce him to all the new guys, and you get to have lunch with Elton John and shoot the shit with a guy like that. And it's an incredible experience when a guy like that is one of the most famous people in the world he really cares about you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and they say that about artists, and like a lot of times musicians, the one thing that they could maybe be or want to be is an athlete, and they say the same thing from athletes on the other direction, and there's this kind of mutual understanding there, and to do that with a guy like him that actually cares so much about what you do and what you give to his organization is like, it's such a crazy honor,
That's amazing. That's absolutely incredible. And don't correct me. I mean, I just assume he came in the locker room with like bright orange sunglasses and a purple suit.
No, of course, there's no such thing as flamboyancy at its highest.
Yeah.
But, at the best.
He came in playing the piano, so that's how.
What's crazy? He's got these big, piano hands. But they're all like, these little like pads, and he's like he just caresses your hand, and it's like you're getting a hug from his hands and stuff. It's amazing.
That's incredible. Okay, so let's talk about perhaps the biggest moment at Watford, but certainly it's right up there anyhow for you. Watford, this is in your second year, I believe.
Yep.
There's still Div 2 knocking on the door of breaking through to Div 1, the Premiership, and there's just, it comes down to this one game and a moment that, I could be wrong, but I look at this and see this as a total career-defining moment that just, catapulted you. I'll let you set it up and go from there.
Yeah, for sure. And again, we talk about defining moments in your careers, and mostly you can put that down to one hand or less, right? And this is certainly one of them. And it was my second year pro. Again, I'd had a lot of games under my belt in my first couple seasons, so that was good. I was ready for these kind of occasions. And in the English soccer system, it's a promotion relegation system. So the top 4 professional leagues, the bottom 3 teams in each league go down. The top 3 teams in each league go up. So that every year that changes. And we were predicted to go down that season. We hired a new manager. He was the youngest manager in the league, and he came in with a fresh new attitude, but made us believe that we could be a team that could go and play in the Premier League. And by the end of that season, we were very good. He created this thing called the circle mentality, where we'd sit in a circle every Sunday after our Saturday game, and we'd talk about the good parts, the bad parts, and we'd open this line of communication where in a circle nobody can hide, and in a circle everybody matters. And anyone that had to do with game day operations, from the physios to the to the bench players, to everyone was in that meeting, and we'd talk about what happened. Good, bad, ugly, didn't matter. And by the end of that season, we were all on the same page. We all played for each other, and it was the greatest, form of teamwork that I've ever been a part of. And and in the end, we made the playoffs. And in and if you make the top 2 teams go straight, the last team is the 3 to 6th place playoff, and the 3rd place 6th, 4th place 5th, home and away, and then it sets up one playoff final in a neutral stadium. So this stadium was the Millennium Stadium in Wales, 80,000 seat stadium. Half of the seats are white, half the seats are yellow for Watford. We're playing against a team called Leeds. Leeds was in the Champions League just a couple of years previous, so they had a big reputation, a lot of really good players, very much predicted to wipe the floor with us. And we came in with that fresh attitude of nothing could stop us. And we wiped the floor with them. We beat them 3-0, and I scored the first goal on a corner kick. It was a header at the back post, and Watford went up 1-0, and we won 3-0. And then I got after the game, this guy comes up to you and he has the game ball in this glass square, and I got the man of the match award, and had to talk in front of the whole stadium after the game, and so that kind of all of a sudden, who, like in American circles of soccer, who is this guy? Nobody's ever heard of me. You know what I mean? Maybe the inner circles have said there's some American playing at Watford, but no one in the States had ever heard of me. And there I was, again, promoted to the most lucrative game in professional sports is the playoff final, because of the TV revenue that the club gets from going from second division to the Premier League, where the world watches the Premier League more than anything on the planet. So that TV revenue is very, very big for the club. And so I was thrust into this environment where all of a sudden I was the guy, and no one had ever heard of me.
So you go from Watford now, and that all changed in a very big hurry, because U.S. men's national team comes knocking, and your first major tournament, Confederations Cup. And do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, well, once you get in those conversations, again, now I'm playing in the Premier League. It's 2006, 2007, and I'm playing against Drogba, Ronaldo, Ryan Giggs, Wayne Rooney, John Terry, Thierry Henry. All these the world's best players are playing against me every week. And not only was that a great baptism of fire for me, and the learning curve that I had to be a part of, which always had to be fast. I was already behind the 8 ball, so any learning opportunity I had to be quick. And I knew that, but it worked. And eventually I get called up to the national team. 2007, again, I was 27 years old.
Yeah.
You know, I'd never played for my national team, let even tried out for it. And I'm to get my first, opportunity at 27. So, and again, I think to put it into perspective, I was a 27-year-old when I got my first cap for the U.S. national team. So that's my first appearance for the U.S. national team, and that was in 2007. So, I basically was a bench player for a year and a half, 2 years. Kind of waiting in the wings, learning about international soccer. It's very different. Travel schedules are crazy. Playing for your club every weekend, and then international breaks. And again, travel schedule was on international breaks was play for your team in England on Saturday, fly to wherever that is on Sunday, usually Miami, train on Monday, train on Tuesday, get on a flight, go to like Mexico City for our Mexico friendly or game or CONCACAF World Cup qualifier, Wednesday night, Thursday morning, go to the airport, Thursday afternoon, fly, land on Friday morning European time, and then play for your club team again on Saturday. Jeez. So you're playing three 90-minute matches with 15 hours of flights in between.
Yeah.
And so that's a very different change to your schedule, to your mindset, to your like bringing science into sport, how to recover, how to, how to like wear like recovery tights on the plane. So like, you know what I mean? There's all sorts of sciences that you start to learn about that stuff. And that's kind of international soccer in a nutshell. And then I got 2009, I got my first opportunity to really start, but my first 3 games were Italy, Egypt, and Spain. So again, exactly not the easiest games to walk into.
No.
But again, I was used to those things. I was playing in the Premier League, so those types of things didn't really, as a young, or not a young, but an experienced international. Thankfully, I had that kind of base opportunity to kind of gain that in my club, and so when that came internationally, I was ready. And we got to the semifinal. We beat Spain. We snapped their 30-odd win streak.
Yeah.
They had been unbeaten for years, World Cup champs in 2006. And, we wanted to make sure that we did something different that day, and we did. And I got to play in that game, and that set up the Brazil final. We went 2-0 up on Brazil and almost won our first world tournament as an American team. And we lost 3-2, and it was disappointing. But either way, it gave me the confidence that I was ready to play at that level. And with the World Cup looming in less than a year, I was set up.
Okay, so that's all the time we have for today. We're going to have part 2 of the Jay DeMerit story coming up next week.
Ooh.
You were our first 2-part story.
Good luck sleeping this week.
The dual guest. Yeah, absolutely. So, but that was great, man. I mean, we're covering a lot of ground, and some incredible stuff coming up next week on the other side as well. We got quite the Rise and Shine story to talk about here. The Rise and Shine, the original Rise and Shine, the OG.
That's right.
So speaking of which, more info coming up right here on the Rise and Shine Foundation. Check it out. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
So we are sitting here at the future site of a really glamorous high-end facility called the Rise and Shine Retreat. Currently we are kind of bootstrapping it with some tents that we've set up to be glamorous campsites, aka glamping. They make perfect accommodation for kids who are joining us for Jay's captain's camps.
Well, I think for us, half of this is about the mentorship program. It's not actually about soccer. The sport is why we're all here. But the mentorship is truly about what skills can we present to these kids and really start to give them an idea of what other successful people are doing in this world. And we have fun little competitions, but we always try to walk them out in the mentor's shoes, because that's truly how these kids can learn.
So we feel it's really important to make sure that they are able to identify their other skills and strengths, and particularly passions. It's not just kids coming up and being coached by somebody in their particular sport. It's kids' eyes being open to the multitude of possibilities and potential for success beyond the field. The idea is to create well-rounded individuals through this program. And then the other side of it is, we have all of these athletes who have transitioned out of sport, or entrepreneurs who have moved on or changed their focus and transitioned out of whatever their career path had been. And it's cool to provide an opportunity for them to be part of it.
To see kids grow and to see kids actually participate in these kind of activities is truly, for me, the biggest benefit I get out of it all, because I can see them physically developing right in front of our eyes. You know, we've been at the highest echelons of high performance, but we've also, you know, we're normal people, we're relatable people, just like everybody else. And we have this rare ability to now create the platform to understand what that means, to support each other, to bring back community and not only in our kids, but as adults, and help each other.
I think that, you know, when you achieve success as an athlete and you are so appreciative of all the people who put so much into it, it's only natural that you'd want to sort of turn around and share what you've learned and your experiences with the next generation.
We call it the Rise and Shine Retreat. That's what we're trying to create. We want people to come here in the health and wellness space and say, when I leave here, I'm going to be shining brighter. I'm going to understand what Rise and Shine means and the mentality behind it. We want to create a multifaceted facility. We want to be able to host weddings. We want to be able to host kids camps. We want to do fundraisers. We want to host community nights where people come and play sand soccer. You know, we have the license and the space to really create our own lifestyle and bring people along with that in all of this health and wellness sphere that, you know, we feel so strongly about, and have a great crew that can help in those environments and create those atmospheres. And that's the kind of thing that we want to do here. We want to be unique. We want to set a new standard in how we should live, and ultimately create a community that really cares for each other.